So now we will see how to deploy this simple contract. So first we will be deploying on to the local environment, and then we will be deploying to testnet. So before deploying, we need to compile this contract. So if you are if you have enabled this auto compile option, then it will be compiled automatically, and then you will see this green check mark over here. So whatever I write over here, so will be compiled right after I stop writing. So in this case, you can see it's throwing an error because I have written some gibberish text. So if I remove this, it will be fine. So you can enable or disable as per your convenience. So if I write now, then it will not compile it. It will just show an error, but it will not show green tick mark unless I click on over here. It will show this error, and if I remove it, then it will again go back to this state, and when I click on compile, it will show green tick mark. So, and also the command to compile is command plus S or control plus S. So it will compile the contract using that command. So now we will just go to the deployment, and also it's advised to select in the advanced configuration, it's advised to select this Paris version from here, because if you use something like the EVM version Paris, if you use something like Cancun or Shanghai, or it's default to Cancun according to this compiler, if you use any of these versions, then it will it might show an error related to push unavailability of push zero or mcopy opcodes. So you can learn about opcodes and everything from it's just a in-depth thing of EVM. So it will show that these opcodes are not found if you compile it using, if you deploy it using these particular versions. So it's recommended to use Paris, specifically if you are deploying it on testnets other than Ethereum default Sepolia testnet or etc. If you are deploying it on testnet like Avalanche, Fuji or Polygon Amoy, you might encounter errors like mcopy opcode not found or put zero opcode not found. So that's why it's recommended to select Paris from here. So once you select, you can just compile it again, and then you can go to this deploy and run transactions button, and here also you can just select remix VM Paris. So if it's not showing here, you can just go to this customize this list option and enable it from here, remix VM Paris as it's enabled in my case. If you disable it, then it will not show over here, and if you enable it, then it will show. So you can just close this and select remix VM Paris. So that's basically the virtual environment provided by the Remix to deploy and interact with the contract locally. So if you want to just quickly test something out in your contract, then you can just deploy over here instead of using the testnet funds and deploying on testnet. It's recommended to use virtual environment. So, and it will just fund it with some virtual tokens of that environment, and every time you basically, so suppose you deploy it and then consume some funds, then every time you refresh or you select it again, then it will just show back the 100 ether values. It will just fill it up again because it's a virtual environment. And then there's the deployment button, and then you are seeing your contract being selected from here. You have to make sure that if there are multiple contracts, then you have to make sure that the contract that you are deploying is selected. In our case is hello world contract, so the name of the contract is hello world, and it's showing the same over here, so it's fine. And in the deploy, the deploy is button that you are seeing over here, so you are seeing this parameter to be passed because our constructor is expecting a parameter. So suppose I remove this and also comment this using shift plus option plus a, I comment this out. or I can just comment the entire constructor, because the usage of constructor is optional to initialize the storage variable, as I explained previously. So if I comment this out, then you are not seeing any parameter or any argument to be passed over here in the deploy button. You can just simply deploy, but in this case our message won't be initialized to a particular value that we'll pass. But when we just uncomment this using command plus hyphen, then compile again, then you will see this particular parameter called initial message again, where it's allowing us to pass a parameter at the time of deployment. So we can just pass any message like hello world. So in this case, as I've already mentioned, like any transaction will not consume any funds, because it's the any funds from your MetaMask wallet, because it's a virtual environment. So you can just click on transact and it will just, and that's the console that you are seeing, like similar to the terminal of your operating system. Is the terminal of this integrated environment. You can just clear it. So whatever the transactions will happen, it will showcase the information over here. So when we click on transact, it will just go in real time, because it won't wait to be added to the block and all, as it's a virtual environment. So you will just see the immediate transaction over here of the deployment. The constructor is being executed, and then you can see details like contacts, entire bytecode, and then the decoded input as hello world. And you can see your contact instance over here in the deployed contact section. So now we'll learn about like what this blue button is and the orange button.